Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Hi, January. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lola.
Good morning and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I see a name coming up I'm not familiar with. Terrence Hinton?
Yeah, I don't know Terrence. Good
Okay.
morning, Terrence. Does this say it's record? It is recording. Okay, I wanted to make sure that that was being taken care of. It says Terrence is connecting to audio. Okay, it is 10:45. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our CQE panel discussion. We're happy that you joined our workshop today. Just a few little housekeeping things before we get started. We want to ask everyone to really make this a conversation. And we're going to talk about the CQEs. We have a list of questions to ask the panelists. And please put your questions in the chat as we go. You don't have to wait till the end. I want to remind everyone to please mute. So far, so good on that, right? But again, welcome. And I want to give our panelists a few moments to introduce themselves. So we have January Newport, Joanne Saul, and Lola Simmons. January, do you mind introducing yourself to everyone, please?
I'm sorry, Roxanne, I missed that.
That's okay. I just asking you to introduce yourself.
Fair enough. My name is January Newport, and I am a reentry program coordinator with the Montgomery County Office of Reentry. I have been invited to the panel as a CQE holder. So I am a restored citizen to the Montgomery County area, and my educational background is in chemical dependency addiction counseling. I'm a licensed chemical dependency counselor and working as a social work student on my BSW at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Thank you, January, and welcome. Professor Saul, would you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much, Roxanne. My name is Joanne Saul, and I am the director of the Reentry Clinic at the University of Akron School of Law, where we do one of my favorite things that we're going to be talking about this morning, the CQE. We also do court sealings, which some folks call expungements. We do human trafficking expungements, and we also are involved with the new Ohio Governor's Expedited Pardon Project. I'm excited to see so many folks today, and I see some names I recognize, so welcome this morning.
Thank you so much. Lola, good morning. And would you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. My name is Lola Simmons, and I am the executive director here at the Home for Good Reentry Resource Referral Center. We were invited here today because we are practitioners in the field of the CQE, and having been asked to be the hub of CQEs for Mahoning County, we've now spread that to adjoining counties of Ashtabula, Columbiana, Trumbull County, because we want to be as effective as we can be. We also were selected as the agency as the recipient of the NABJA Award for 2021. I just want to put that out there because of some of the recognition that we have had. And we don't do it for pats on the back. Of course, we do it because it says that we do it, and the recognition says that there's something about us that makes us stand out. And we really want that CQE to be that major thing that sits out there and assists with the reentry. We are also the hub of the Citizen Circle for Mahoning County. I sit on as a chair on that board of community partners. And so just happy to be here today, and just, again, excited to have been acknowledged enough to be able to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lola, and congratulations on your NABJA Award. That's wonderful. And so I'm really excited. I'm excited to hear from January, Joanne, and Lola today. People that know about the CQE and hopefully can answer any questions that you have or introduce you to the CQE. So maybe that's the case too. Either way, we're happy that you came. So we'll get started. My first question, Joanne, I really want to direct this one to you. Can you just tell us, for folks who may not know, what is the CQE?
I would love to, Roxanne. Thank you for the question. So the official title of this is the Certificate of Qualification for Employment. All of us in the field never call it that. It's the CQE, and that's how we're going to reference it for the rest of the presentation, unless my co-panelists are brave enough to use the full title every single time. So let's first talk about, well, let me just say, it's a certificate issued by the Common Pleas Court. Okay. And what it does for folks who have criminal convictions is it opens the door to opportunities. And we're going to talk a lot more about that this morning. It's going to allow you or someone who has a criminal conviction to apply for a job or professional licensing where your criminal record might have prevented you from doing that. So let's talk first about what it is not. It is not court sealing. So the CQE does not result in your record being sealed from court view. What it is it's a certificate that a recipient can take to an employer or a professional licensing agency to open that door. Okay, I'm going to talk briefly a little bit about what qualifies someone for a CQE. As Roxanne mentioned, please put your questions in the chat because we really want to answer the questions you have about it. Mm-hmm. So unlike sealing, where there is disqualifying offenses, that doesn't apply to a CQE. It doesn't matter how many offenses you have. It doesn't matter what the offenses are. You can still apply for a CQE because what the CQE does is it lifts those disqualifications, as we talked about, jobs, licensing. And there are a few exceptions where it won't list disqualifications, and I'm not going to talk much about those because they're very limited. But you can apply for a CQE earlier than you could a court sealing. It's 6 months after a misdemeanor or 1 year after a felony. So a very short time period, because the point of the CQE is to allow people to get access to these opportunities, right? It's not to steal from public view so no one knows about the convictions. It's to get people back to work or to get a professional license. You file the application. It's an online application that goes to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Once DRC approves it for completeness, then you actually print out your application and you file it in the Common Pleas Court where you live. The court goes through some process to approve you. And I want to briefly mention this because this is so different than sealing. The court is really vetting the person when they grant them a CQE, which means they're determining they're not a risk to the public. They've been rehabilitated, and you don't get that with sealing, which means if I'm a CQE recipient, I can tell the employer that. The court notifies all the courts where I might have a conviction, and they ask them, are you opposed to the CQE? Those things are important as folks go forward to use the CQE. Then the court decides whether they're a good candidate for the CQE, and the court grants it, and you actually get the CQE, the certificate in hand, to be able to take to the employer and the licensing agency. So the process is really for anybody who has a criminal conviction. If it's been a year since your felony or 6 months since the misdemeanor, there is an exception to that rule that I want to mention to everyone today, which is if you came home from prison earlier because you participated in certain prison programming, you can apply for a CQE right away. So it's an awesome remedy that I really wish more people would take advantage of. So I'm going to stop here, Roxanne, so the other panelists, we can get to the other questions. And if people have questions of me, they can put them in the chat.
Joanne, thank you so much for that. I do want to add one more question to ask you, just simply because I received this question earlier this week, and I told them no. But someone asked me, is there a time limit? My conviction was 10 years ago. No. Remember, it's any conviction. Right. I mean, any conviction, and the only time period involved is you have to wait 1 year since your sentence ended for a felony, which means actually finishing your community control, your parole. You will need to have the restitution paid, or 6 months for a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. And that's what I shared with this individual. And we've had people had been released from incarceration in 1994, and they're like, "Can I apply for this?" Absolutely. You do know, Roxanne, I'm going to put my little plug in here. The new governor's expedited pardon project. If your convictions are at least 10 years old, you're going to want to go to the Ohio governor's expedited pardon project website to see if you're eligible. The governor is pardoning people under that program. So please,
for anyone who calls Roxanne 10 years or older, I know she's telling them, but please go and check out that program as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joanne. I appreciate that. January, I want to direct the next question to you. You introduced yourself as a CQE holder. Can you tell us what does the CQE do? What did it do for you?
Yes, Roxanne. As Joanne mentioned, the CQE kind of can mitigate some of those collateral sanctions and assist someone with entering into professional employment, licensing, boards, and so on. So for me, in my personal experience, it provided me a solution because I'm not eligible for a record sealing in the state of Ohio. So it provided me a solution, and it has provided me confidence as well to move past the offenses and move past the collateral sanctions. So I was able to be licensed in the state of Ohio as a chemical dependency counselor. I was also able to get my Medicaid billing license, billing number without any hesitation, not with the CQE, but just on my own. I was able to obtain those things. And then it came to the hiring process. I landed a job, and that was well. But I went on for an internship for social work, and I went to a community provider to do my internship, and I was declined. I'm a state licensed counselor, I have a Medicaid billing number, I'm employed and have been for 4 years, but I can't land this free internship. So they were unable to really even tell me what disqualified me except for my background. That's the only answer that they would give me. And but they did say, hey, go get a CQE. I had heard vaguely a little bit about it. So at the time I was, a little leery in getting it. I was very discouraged. That sense of rejection and that sense of the background just haunting me. Even though I had made such great strides in moving forward, it was still lingering. So I took a little bit of time and processed, and I eventually went through the process and applied for the CQE and was granted the CQE. I turned back around to the same agency at a later date and provided the CQE, and I was very nervous. I'd already been rejected by them, even though they told me to obtain the CQE. It was just still that sense of rejection and being shot down that it just didn't feel good. But I went for it, and I went back to them and I presented the CQE. And so I know indeed that in fact that it was that certificate that worked in that moment, because when I went back through the background, process and all of that, I kept asking, where do I stand? What is going on? How is this going? They had no questions, none. The CQE was it for them. As well as in my place of employment now, my supervisor let me know what that CQE done for me in this position was. Let her know the commitment that I have made in changing my life around, the strides that I have made, and being a person that wants to and is now working in reentry, but is also utilizing reentry tools and proving that they are effective.
Amazing. Thank you, January. I appreciate that. And congratulations. The next question, Lola, I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges in obtaining a CQE that you've experienced working with individuals?
I was listening to January, and when she mentioned not really knowing much about the CQE or what it could do for her or, anyone else. Again, we have to talk about that education, getting and reaching those far corners. And so I'm looking at what that being a part of it, not knowing what it is. But then the other piece that I keep running into, and this is, people are excited about it, those that have heard some of what it is. They want it to make life better so they can get this job. They're not quite ready for it because of the wait time that's required on that. the felony 1 year post-release from supervision, the 6 months on the misdemeanor post-release, and they're anxious. They're truly anxious about it. And I'll tell you, the people that we have encouraged, because it's what to do in the meantime. I always talk about, I say it's like having mom and dad watching us. And so don't let it be a challenge. Just let it be that I'm learning lessons while I'm waiting out this time. And I need to accomplish certain things in my life, if at all possible. I know sometimes there's a challenge with getting a job, but those other things, whether it's sustaining a household, having a place to live, to have custody of your children, or at least if you have some interaction with them in their lives, family support, maybe engage in some type of community thing. So that would be one of the challenges that I've seen. And so that wait time is not so hard. They've come back after that. We've been at this since 2015, doing CQEs, as the hub for the Mahoning County. So, we see the people and they'll come back and it's like, it's time, Miss Simmons, or they'll write the date down in their phones. And then it's, I'll be back that day. And, so I'm happy to say they come back. So that challenge, it is a challenge, but it's doable. The other one that I've seen once they are ready for the CQE is that they don't have what they call, I don't have any friends. I don't have family. And some of that's because of the disconnect that takes place during that period of time that they've been transitioning, whether it's from the time they were arrested all the way up through the time that they're ready to do that CQE. Because if they're changing their lives and they still have those friends and family members who may still be engaged to a point that's going to be a negative effect in their lives, they're no longer, and this is what I tell them, those are not friends, those are associates. It's time to create a new environment with new friends. And if the family members don't accept you because they can't get over whatever it was in your life that caused that disruption, then maybe in time, and if not, then, we have a life, we have to live our lives. And so I said, you'll be fine. So my conversation with them at all times, it is a conversation, no matter what I'm telling them, because I want them to feel warm when they come in here. So that part, creating those references, and for family and friends, it's like, think outside of that box. There may be somebody that you've interacted with that can be that family member or that can be that friend. And the other part of a challenge, the other challenge that I'm seeing is some places still have filing fees. We don't. Mahoning County has the affidavit for indigency, and because Home for Good, in addition to Ashtabula, Columbiana, Mahoning, or Trumbull County, has access to the Reentry Coalition Expansion Grant. And part of that grant is going to offset some of the court costs and fees if they were to run into those things. Excellent. One other conflict that I did write down was scheduling conflicts for people who are trying to work to coincide with our work hours. What we are doing, though, is giving them the handwritten applications. We're trying to resolve as many of those challenges as we can. They can bring those back. We can do those as long as we verify, their identification. We're off and running. So those are some of the major challenges that I've seen. But again, we are working around them and trying to do what we can to resolve those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Lola. And based on what January just talked about and what you just talked about, Lola, the CQE seems to be more than just filing and waiting for it to be, for the decision from the judge. It seems like that through that process, it's really important to encourage individuals, to educate them what it is. Hey, there's a time limit here, but hang on, hope is coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to tap onto that, I spoke with one of our magistrates last week, and what he told me, he says, because we were trying to find out where someone's information was in the system as far as the CQE being awarded to her. And what he says, you know what, it hasn't come back yet from total state vetting. But we are trying our best to approve. He says we're at about a 99% rate of approval in Mahoning County. So that was like,
Excellent.
I was like, thank you so much.
That's
So I
great.
share that to encourage.
Absolutely, absolutely. So January, what, I know you talked a little bit about some opportunities. What other opportunities have been offered by having been granted the CQE? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Opportunities offered by the CQE. I haven't had any other personal experience directly. However, as I mentioned, I was in the chemical dependency field prior to moving over into reentry work, and it had provided people the opportunity to be licensed through the professionals board to mitigate some of those past offenses and to show their credibility. Some people were licensed, however, were unable to obtain a Medicaid billing number to provide services to clients who were Medicaid recipients. So that was an opportunity that the CQE provided to many of people in the chemical dependency world. The social work world, their licensing board is a little more stringent than the professionals board for chemical dependency counseling. So I am very hopeful that I will have an update at the next panel meeting that the social work licensing board has accepted me and allowed me to test and receive an LSW based upon having the CQE. So that's a future opportunity that I will be utilizing that certificate.
Wonderful. And I think that brings up a good point. Joanne, I think there's some legislative changes occurring. Could you talk a little bit about that for us?
I can. So for those of you who have access to a piece of paper, and a pencil or a pen, I'm going to give you a couple Ohio Revised Code sites because there have been some amazing changes that I think we all should know about. And these are probably two statutes well worth reading. The first is what's called Ohio Revised Code 9.78 and Ohio Revised Code 9.79. January talked a little bit about licensing. So when the CQE statute was passed, that was really one of the big motivations, is that we had a lot of people who wanted to get a license in Ohio. And there are a lot of laws in Ohio that prevent people from being licensed because of their criminal convictions. And so the legislature said, we really need to fix this problem. So when the CQE statute was passed, the rule was that every single licensing board in Ohio was supposed to take the CQE to allow people to be considered on a case-by-case for licensing. So, well, that's all well and good, but as time moved along, there was really inconsistency in the Ohio licensing boards and their use of the CQE and accepting it. So these two provisions that I talked about at the beginning, one is 9.78. Well, I'll just talk about them generally. One of the statute talks about the fact that if you have a criminal record and you're thinking about getting a professional license, you can now ask any licensing board in Ohio whether that criminal record is going to disqualify you. And the licensing board is supposed to respond to your request within 30 days. So let's say in January's example, I want to be a social worker and I don't have a CQE. I can write the social work board and say, I have a receiving stolen property conviction. Is that going to prevent me from getting a license with you, from applying for a license? I've actually seen the application now. And then you're going to get a letter from the licensing board that's going to say yes or no. So that's a big change in the law, because we have people who want to go to college, and we've seen these in our clinic, and I see Lola shaking her head as well. They have a 4-year degree and their criminal conviction might prevent them from getting the license. So to help them make good decisions about their future without spending an awful lot of money or time. But let's really shift to the point of today, which is the CQE. Every Ohio licensing board is required to accept a CQE. Okay. What that means is they're not required to hand me the license, but they have to accept the CQE as proof of rehabilitation, and it allows me to be considered, like January is probably being considered on a case-by-case basis for that license. So the change isn't really new, but the legislature has now said to the Ohio licensing boards, we really, really, really mean it this time. Stop with the nonsense. I know it's being recorded. Stop with the nonsense, and you have to accept a CQE. But it's more than that. They have to advertise the CQE on the website. It has to be in the application. So folks who have criminal convictions that are now trying to get an Ohio license need to be told that they can go and get a CQE, and a CQE will be accepted as well. The other changes unrelated to CQE, and some of you who've been doing this work for a long time will know of what I speak. There were all kinds of crazy rules if you had a criminal conviction that maybe, depending on your conviction, it would be 27 years before you could apply for a license. Now with the new rules, you have to tell folks how long they have to wait depending on their conviction. Again, folks who don't have a CQE, the CQE is the exception to this, but if I don't have a CQE or want to get a CQE, why that would be the case, I don't know. But let's just say I didn't apply for a CQE. There are all kinds of new rules now about how long a licensing board can impose the restrictions. And the law now talks about all these mitigating factors they have to consider. How long has it been since your criminal conviction? Were you the primary offender? They're terrific. So that's why I'm saying, if you don't ever look at any Ohio Revised Code sections, if any of you are helping people with criminal convictions, you need to go take a look at them, because there's been a sea change in the law in the last year. And I'm going to stop here, Roxanne, because I could talk about this forever, because I think it's really exciting that we have this legislation and these changes for people who have criminal convictions who want to get a professional license.
Joanne, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I love that they really, really, really mean it this time. I love it. Fantastic. So I'll go on to the next question, and I'm going to open this up to anyone on the panel. What are some of the myths that you've encountered about the CQE?
So I'm going to start first, because I'm actually going to flip this question, because I didn't talk about this in the beginning, and I want to make sure people understand. When people come to our clinic who have criminal convictions, everybody wants an expungement, which is really court sealing, right? That's what everybody wants. I want to get my record sealed. But I want everybody on the presentation to understand that there are a number of people who can see those sealed records. If you're working with a vulnerable population, those folks are still going to see your sealed record. Number one reason we do a CQE in our clinic is for the healthcare industry. All of those healthcare providers by law are going to get access to the sealed records. So it's really important, if you're helping folks, to understand and to ask them, what is it they want to be, right? What's that job they want? Because many times in our clinic, if someone is eligible for sealing, we're going to do a CQE, because they're looking for that professional license, or they're looking to be employed in areas where a sealing is not going to be enough for them. So I just want to talk about that myth, because I think that's really what should drive people, Roxanne, to do a CQE. Is I think everybody believes that a sealing means my record is destroyed and no one can see it, and that is just simply not true.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. Lola or January, do you have anything to add to that about myths?
I do. And I'm going to tap into something that Professor Saul said. We get the same thing. They come in for the sealing, and we talk to them exactly as she stated. And we partner with Community Legal Aid, because they do sealings. And I tell them, I said, it's like an envelope. You know, some people can't open it, as Professor Saul has said. And so you're pretty much back to square one. You're going to be denied that. But what I encourage the individuals to do is to not only get, if you qualify for a sealing, get that, but please get the CQE. And I talked to, when I talked to the people at Community Legal Aid, I said, well, you know, sometimes they're not sealable, but they are CQEable. And so they said they're going to coin that word, but it's
a new term.
And that is a myth, that they come in, I want to get my record sealed, and I tell them what we do, and we end up doing that. And I said, now, you know, looking at what they have, I said, I'm not going to be the one to make that final determination on whether or not this record can be sealed, but go to community legal aid and have them give you those instructions. So that is a big myth that that I've seen. And so we dispelled that. There were a couple that I did see that I wanted to mention, though, in addition to that one. Back when the CQE was very new, and I'm going to say probably back in 15, I went to a court, a reentry court, and someone mentioned the CQE at that time. And what the judge said in the reentry court amongst everyone in attendance, oh, that thing's not going to do any good. We don't even know what that is. So, and they didn't talk on it anymore. They just had that person sit, and I was embarrassed for the person because I did know a little bit about the CQE. Then we'd had training thanks to Professor Saul. We had that, and it was something that I thought, well, they just don't know. And since that time, it's gotten better. But they said it was just a piece of paper. There was a CQE that was filed in Trimble County, one of the first, I think it was the first, and it was denied immediately. And I and one of Professor Saul's law school students at the time went over and spoke with an employment attorney there because we wanted to find out, okay, what's going on? He didn't know, but what he said, I will find out. And when he came back to us, he said, and it was in the same day, same meeting, he said, it was denied by a magistrate who felt that, it never made it to any of the judges, but he felt that because this person had been incarcerated, that he did not qualify for a CQE. He based it on the incarceration piece. And we were just blown. Well, that person applied again. And by that time, more conversation had been had with the mayor of the city. I mean, we went there. we just needed them to know a little bit more. And I thank you, Professor Saul, for allowing us to work with Ray Hartsaw. I'm going to call his name out because he was awesome in getting and instrumental in getting the CQE people trained in this area for that. But that was another big one. So just want to say that one has been addressed and it was dispelled. I have down here 2016.
And Roxanne, could I mention one other thing? Because Lola reminded me about another issue that we've seen, and I think everyone who's assisting people with CQE should know. Unlike sealing, where you have to tell the court about all your convictions, the way the CQE statute is written, you are only required to put on the CQE application the conviction you believe is causing you the issues, right? So if I have 35 misdemeanors and 1 felony, and I believe, and I have a felony drug trafficking, and I believe, and probably rightly so, that's what is preventing me from getting a job, I only have to put the drug trafficking on my application. It is up to the court to do the independent investigation to determine all of those other convictions, and the court cannot deny the application because you have not listed them. And I think that's helpful for all of us who work in this space where it's hard sometimes to remember all the convictions, or you might not be able to find them. So I just wanted to say that the statute does not require applicants to list all of those convictions.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. I want to go to the chat for a moment. First of all, Joanne, Dr. Hinton is thanking you for the information and is saying it is very helpful to hear about the revised code change. And then we have this is a long question I'm going to pose to the panel from Northwest Ohio. If I would apply for a CQE, do I need to list the collateral sanctions that I want my CQE to address? Once I get my CQE and now I want to try to get a different license, do I need to file a new application, amend it, or just use the CQE I already have?
That's a good question. And hello to some of my friends in Toledo. Some of you I know, so nice to see you this morning. If you have applied for a CQE and you put on the CQE a specific licensing reason, and that's what's on the CQE granted by the court, and you want a different licensing option, you are going to have to file a new CQE. I will tell you that what we do in Akron is if our clients want licensing, we always include a request for general employment as well on the application, just so we don't have to go back if it's general employment and they're not going to get that particular license, because we do, and I'm sure Lola will say this as well, we have clients who change their mind. I want to be a real estate, I want to get a real estate license this year, and next year I want to be chemical dependency. That's not unusual. And I would hope that if they had one CQE granted, it would be pretty quick to get the second one granted, but you will have to do that if you've limited your CQE application to one particular license.
That is great information. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Lola, you touched on this. People not knowing about the CQE. It's what, Joanne, 10 years old now? It's having a 10-year birthday. What are each of you doing to attempt to market the CQE? Because I still get calls with people saying, they're telling me I need a CQE. I don't know what this is. Now open it up to any of the three of you.
Sure, I can start off with that. In our area, well, I'll start with, first we have in Montgomery County Office of Reentry, we have our Reentry Career Alliance Academy. We have 9 of those a year, and each workshop, the participants are working with the Greater Dayton Volunteers Lawyer Project. And they are going over with them. Are they eligible for CQE? Are they eligible for record sealing? So they have that opportunity at that point in time for them to sit down with them, go over what their options are, file up paperwork, assist them with the process. So they have all of those answers before they graduate the RCAA. We also have a legal subcommittee. We have our reentry council and 6 subcommittees under that. One of those are our legal subcommittee, and they work alongside the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office, the Dayton Public Library and UD Law, as well as the Greater Dayton Volunteer Lawyers Project. Again, they are doing trainings in the community. They are doing legal clinics every other month at the Dayton Metro Library. 1 month it'll be driver's license. The next month it'll be the legal clinic, where they're doing the CQE education and filing and all of that there as well. On October 21st here at the Montgomery County Job Center in our reentry training center, we have a training for community service providers to train them to assist the filing of the CQE application with the clients. So if anybody needs any information or an invite on that, we have that October 21st. It's from 1 to 4, and that'll be a training for community service providers. So we have those trainings and presentations going on throughout the course of the year.
Are those trainings virtual or in person, January?
I don't have that answer, Roxanne. This is a Quinn Howard project.
Okay.
So he will be on later, I think, in a different workshop, and I can get that information from him and get that out to you.
Super. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to talk about marketing?
It's hard, I think even after 10 years, it's so disappointing to me that there are still not enough people who I think are qualified for it to know about it, and the employers. I know we're going to talk about that next. So we do exactly what January does. We have a free monthly clinic, and so folks come in for an expungement, and then I tackle them and they have to do a CQE. But it's really very, very difficult. I'm sure Lola will say the same thing. It's just trying to find the people who are eligible and explaining to them why it's such a good remedy for them, which is why I'm always so excited to see so many people come to this kind of presentation, because the more people that know, the more people we can help.
Absolutely. And I can share that DRC partners with SCORE, Second Chance Opportunities for Reentry Employment. And SCORE does, I think we have 3 planned for this year we're really trying to recruit employers to attend so that we can talk about the CQE and what those benefits are for the employers. But as we go into that next question, can any of you talk about what are the benefits for employers by hiring a CQE holder?
Can I make a comment and then go back to the other one? We're talking about the
Yeah.
marketing. Because we've been doing quite a bit of that, and I just wanted to be able to share that with you. Marketing and education training we've done with our monthly citizen circles. That's under the ODRC umbrella. So our community partners that attend, we've done we always want to give them the information so that they can share and offering of the training, but sometimes that's a little difficult to get people to respond to the training sessions because it requires time away from their jobs. And they just aren't, how do I say this? They don't have enough time to do that. I'll just leave it there with that one. So monthly citizen circle meetings. And that way they can share it with the population of people that they serve. So because that consists of our community partners and those who are affected by the barriers from having been justice involved. We have done training with Ohio Means Jobs. That's so very vital because of the populations that they see coming through there. They actually have a reentry program. And so they tap into us to do the CQEs for their people. Eastern Gateway Community College TRIO program. We train their staff, however, they send their individuals to us to do here in our office environment. One of the things that they said that is that, short-staffed, but we don't mind doing that because what we want to make sure that is that people don't enroll in classes and spend the time, I think this was mentioned earlier, studying, graduating, and cannot get into a field, and sometimes they've wasted their money. So, we want to make sure that they do a career exploration and also see whether or not what I'm going to get a degree in requires licensing. So let's get that out of the way at the very beginning. Flying High Professional Development Center and any other professional development centers we partnered with to do CQEs for the state tested nurse assistant programs, the chemical dependency assistance programs, and licensed practical nursing. Goodwill Industries for their employment opportunities program, the rescue mission of Mahoning Valley, because that sometimes is just a pot of people there that have become lost, don't know, and there are things that, they could benefit from by doing a CQE. Radio advertisements we do and sponsoring events, family events where we can find that pot of people, that target population. Went to one, it was a bike giveaway. And I'm gonna say the age of the parents there were, I would say between the ages of 20 and 40. And so that's the majority of the people. When I do the breakdowns, our monthly breakdowns, and I look at the average ages, we're looking at 34 as the average age of the people that are coming through. So that was an awesome event to be able to share what we do. Reentry fairs, hiring and community events. And most recently, we partnered with the Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition, where I spent the day walking around from table to table to introduce some and reiterate the CQE to others that knew about it, but perhaps were not engaged in actively utilizing a CQE. City of Youngstown Hope Conference, we were at a parent-teacher staff meeting, a student staff meeting, and it was a workshop, summer workshop. At that workshop, the principal came up and said, I didn't know what this was. I didn't know anything about it. So it was educating her so that she can educate the others and to be able to, so that they can be able to hire. She says, we need people working with our youth, and that's been a big barrier. So that was just an awesome event for us. Community legal aid partnerships to do the CQEs for their individuals that need those done. And we do a bi-monthly workshop with the Municipal Court of Youngstown. They have an amnesty program called Steering Clear. And what that does is help individuals get their licensing back after they go through a process there. So one of the things that we do is make sure that those people know about the CQE, while we're trying to help them settle some of those court costs and fines. Because I think that sums it up for me, but I just wanted to get that piece out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to share, there's a comment and another question in the chat. The comment from our friends in Toledo, it says that if an individual is applying for a CQ, if the individual applying for a CQE is a member of CareSource Life Services, CareSource can potentially assist with paying the filing fees. It says they would need to apply to get the funds to cover the fee. So that's good news. And then our friend Brian Urbanski, welcome, has a question in the chat, which I think is very applicable at this moment. Brian says, in addition to the licensed professions, have you received any feedback regarding the CQE improving the chance of obtaining employment in the general job market?
We do. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes it's just that they don't know what they want to be. They don't know what they want to do. So they just go, we just file for general. Absolutely. Good question. Thank you.
And you found that when they produce those certificates to employers, then the employers are like, okay.
Yes, and we have some employers that have come back to us and say, I have this person that needs to get a job. We want to hire them. Can you do something? And so absolutely.
Nice. I
That
love
makes
it.
it worthwhile.
Okay. I'm gonna spring a new question on you. Some of the things that I encounter, people with convictions in other states who move to Ohio are asking about the CQE, and I unfortunately I have to share with them that the CQE is for Ohio convictions only. And I've tried to help those individuals who are from other states, but I've not seen a lot. I didn't know if any of the panel members are aware of other states that are doing something similar to the CQE.
So what I do for folks is there's a website called the Collateral Consequences Resource Center. It's a national organization that collects if they have an expungement or a sealing or a certificate for employment. And I always direct people there because they can do a search by state to find out what's available. It's called the Collateral Consequences Resource Center, CCRC.
Joanne, I always learn so much just listening to you talk. Thank you. Anyone else?
The only thing that Home for Good is seen as having to help someone walk through a pardon for Pennsylvania. That's
okay.
all
right. And then where can someone go? I'll open this up to all the panel members. Where can someone go if they want to apply for the CQE and need some assistance?
I'd say Home for Good. If they're in the in that 4-county area that I mentioned, we are here, going to always be here. And that's one of the things that we do.
I normally direct people to their local legal aid organization because those folks are going to know normally who's preparing the CQE or the reentry coalitions. Like January's a member of the reentry coalition, that would be the other place that would be a good place to start to find out who's doing CQEs.
I would suggest, as a reentry coalition, like Joanne said, the local reentry office, that would be the best point of contact here in the Montgomery County area, would be our Office of Reentry. Again, because we are connected to the Public Defender's Office, Legal Aid, the Greater Dayton Volunteer Lawyer Project. We have Quinn, who is very savvy with the CQE and provides the trainings for the application process. So our office in this area is a good point of reference. I did want to mention that the CQE can be filed just online, and an applicant can file by themselves. The reason I want to speak to that is because I was Mrs. Independent. I wanted to complete mine by myself, and everything was great. I, accomplished what I needed to accomplish. However, I would still strongly encourage that we as professionals are encouraging applicants to go somewhere for assistance in completing that application. Just because it can be, a lengthy process. And as Joanne mentioned, everyone may not have the information that they need in order to make that CQE as broad as necessary. And I know Lola mentioned that in her area, the CQE is not having a filing fee. However, in Montgomery County, years ago, when the CQE first rolled out, there was actually a $300 filing fee. And with advocacy, that fee was lowered to $50. I'm not sure roughly when that was reduced to $50. I know in 2021, when I filed for mine, it cost me about $90. And then it was an additional $9 after everything was filed. It was an additional $9 I was billed for it going through the court or across the judge's desk. So with assistance, we can better refer people with indigency filing, or maybe utilizing resources for filing fees, if that may be available, and just that overall general support that we can provide applicants who may get frustrated or discouraged with the process, or may limit themselves and have to spend more money, in future instances if they want to broaden their CQE.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. A few comments. RJ said Pennsylvania does provide certain qualifying documents if their particular institution provided accredited program. So I appreciate that comment. And then Brian is sharing a comment. Brian says, as a reentry friendly housing provider, one of my obvious concerns is the ability of my residents to pay rent. Having a justice involved rental applicant present a CQE would have a positive impact on my decision to approve the lease. So there's collateral benefits in addition to the CQE just for employment, I think. Have any of you experienced that also?
We do the CQE in Akron for subsidized housing. And I tell my folks all the time, remember that whole process the court went through to vet you, that's good to talk to a landlord about, right? It's not just employers, but it's really good to talk to the landlord about, because understanding, how much you had to be vetted to get the CQE is really amazing. And you need to talk about that.
Absolutely. Okay, I think that is the end of our questions. Is there anything, any questions from anyone attending the group, any comments or anything that the panelists feel like we missed discussing that would be important?
We probably need to briefly mention the benefit to employers for the CQE.
Yes.
We didn't get to that. And we're going to do it briefly because I know we're running out of time. When the legislature enacted the statute, they really needed to care for the employers. And the benefit is that if someone hires someone with the CQE, people don't like to hire folks with criminal convictions because they're worried about the risk and something's going to happen. And the statute really addresses that, that it protects the employers from being sued for a negligent hiring claim. So if I hire someone with the CQE and something happens at my place of employment and I end up being sued, I can present the CQE as proof to the court that I shouldn't be sued. And I think that's a real benefit for the employers, as well as this vetting process, which I cannot say strongly enough.
Absolutely. Okay.
I just want to add this too. I was jotting notes last night and trying to think, okay, how would I answer this? And I said a few things, about how the employer is going to benefit from that individual, someone that could pass by, and it'd be an opportunity. They can miss a great employee by doing what they would do by denying that person a job. Then I said that a CQE allows the employer to play a role of giving someone hope for their future and enhance their lives, thus contributing towards the reduction of recidivism. And I just think that's such a great point with what it does, because give me the chance to make a better choice in my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, ending on a very high note. There's a comment from Crystal, our friend Crystal Davis-Weeson in Richland County. It says, "This was great, and Joanne always helps feed my advocacy fire." All right, so we don't have any more questions. I think we'll give everyone a few 5 minutes early or 5 minutes back into your day. Lola, January, Joanne, thank you all so much. It's always great to interact with you all. I learned something every time. Panelists, thank you, or panelists, I just thanked you. Attendees, thank you so much. We are happy that everyone who chose to join us today chose to spend your time with us. This was amazing. So have a good rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.